Okay. Let's see, we are on, and I'm waiting for Facebook to pop on so I can shut down the volume situation. We all know how that works. But thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll give it a second to get some folks in here because I'm all by myself today. Unfortunately, Lori's been under the weather, and we are just going to be solo. However, I will say this: if you have something to say, put it in the Facebook chat. I'll be monitoring it. And also, if you want to be part of the conversation, I will put the link for this Zoom in. And I'm sorry, I'm having a little hitch in my giddy up here on the internet, so I keep kind of freezing every now and then. But if you want to come in, help me out, be part of the conversation today, I'd love for you to do so. And I will put the link in the chat for Facebook, and then you can join me here if you'd like, because we have some interesting topics to talk about today. And I really wish Lori was here for me to bounce them off, because she is the yin to my yang. She's the Thelma to my Louise. And you're just going to get a whole lot of me unless somebody raises their hand and says they want to come join me. So I hope you want to raise your hand and come join me. So anyhow, today, what we're going to chat about is the demise of the proposed settlement. Well, it actually was settled. It was agreed to between the Department of Justice and the National Association of Realtors. Now, it was a funny thing. A lot of agents didn't know anything about it, but if you're here watching this, I'm sure that you consider yourself a nerd and you knew about it. And you, I cannot type and talk at the same time. Okay, sorry about that. And you're aware of what we were expecting to be handed down to us, which was the actual final terms of this agreement. A lot of entities have been working towards this. We knew what the proposed changes were going to be. And then I believe it was on July 3rd, after NAR had done what they said they were going to do, which was get back to the DOJ in 45 days with what they said, you know, we will agree to do this, that, and the other thing. And we never heard anything back from the DOJ. It was crickets on their end. And, you know, as a director, it was like, hello, I would like to, you know, vote on getting this moving so we can get on with our lives, because there was a few things in there that were going to affect how we did business, which is, you know, non-licensees, or not, excuse me, not non-licensees, licensees that were non-realtor members were going to be given access to lock boxes. Now that, to me, that was like the biggest change, you know, disclosing buyer side compensation, not being able to sort that out. You know, those were some biggies, but, you know, access to homes to me was kind of like the biggest of the big deals. So, you know, we were waiting to implement all of that, and it just didn't quite happen. So now, with everything being thrown to the wayside, the DOJ basically said, no, you know, that settlement we agreed to, not so much. We're not agreeing to that anymore, which is NAR, from what I can ascertain, was blindsided by this and said, wait a minute, we had an agreement here. What happened? And, you know, it happened kind of late in the afternoon, right before the 4th of July weekend got off to a start. And, you know, I think they were totally blindsided. You know, they issued a statement, nothing of any real consequence, but, you know, they were totally caught off guard. So it turns out now that there was a statement that was made on the 8th of July, and I'm going to share that with you so you can see what counsel from NAR has to say. So let me share my screen and let me get this going properly here. There we go. And this is what we want to share. You may see me double for a second, but let's see. This is what NAR has to say.
In an unprecedented move, the Department of Justice withdrew its consent to the agreement NAR reached with the DOJ this past November, which had resolved questions raised by the DOJ about commissions and the MLS system. And the DOJ voluntarily dismissed the action in federal court. Pursuant to that agreement, NAR had agreed to make certain changes to the Code of Ethics and MLS policies. Despite the fact that the agreement was fully negotiated and approved by the head of the Antitrust Division of the DOJ, and the NAR had fulfilled all of its obligations under the agreement, the DOJ is inexplicably backing out. While this leaves the proposed rule changes agreed to as part of the settlement on hold, NAR's focus is unwavering. NAR has always been and remains grounded in our commitment to act in the best interests of buyers and sellers across the country. And we will continue to update our policies and rules to protect consumers and promote transparency and efficiency in the real estate marketplace. We will continue to keep you informed if there are any additional developments.
So I hope that that played well for everybody. I'm trying to be a technician here as well as having the conversation, so it gets a little hard on this end to keep up with everything. But yeah, so that's what NAR had to say on the 8th. Now, people were contemplating, why did the DOJ pull out of the settlement? And I did see a comment in the chat that perhaps, you know, it was good that the DOJ pulled out. Then this morning, it was brought to my attention in one of the groups that I'm in, and Saul Klein posted it. And it was what was just published on the 9th as a presidential order from the White House. So let me share this with you now. And let's see, here we go. And here's what we've got. Excuse me for scrolling up here. On July 9th, an executive order on promoting competition in the American economy. Now, this seems to be a very broad sweeping order here, but this might have something to do with things because they're talking a lot about consolidation of power, you know, that it's not helping the small businesses thrive and various other things, you know, and there is some truth to that. But when we get into the, you know, how does real estate go into this, you know, there's, you know, this little part right here, and I am not an attorney. I'm just reading what's posted on the internet. And that's my disclaimer here. That's all I'm doing, is just reading what the White House put out. They seem to be concerned about unfair, deceptive, and abusive business practices, resisting consolidation and promoting competition with independent oversight of mergers, acquisitions, and joint ventures, promulgating, boy, that's a fun word, rules that promote competition, including the market entry of new competitors, and promoting market transparency. And, you know, my own personal opinion, I can see where the settlement covered a few of these things, such as the unfair, deceptive, and abusive business practices. And I don't think that we as an industry were doing that. I think, though, that there were actors that were saying your services are free, it costs nothing to use me. And really it does, because we all say it doesn't cost the buyer anything. We're talking the closing statement, credits and debits. The buyer's paying the commission. It's just coming out of the seller side. We all know that. But do we explain this to our clients? Probably not. And when we're talking about market transparency through compelled disclosure of information, I think that that goes hand in hand. People are under the impression that the seller pays for all of the commissions, and it's not true. Technically, the buyer is paying for the commissions by inflating the price of the home to cover the commissions that come off of the seller side of the net sheet. So just to be clear, that, you know, I can kind of see, I can kind of understand where they're coming from on that. And you'll have to excuse me because I have too many screens going here. So if people are commenting, I don't know what the comments are right now. So we're going to scroll down a little bit here, and they're talking about putting a panel together, or a council. Here we go, the White House Competition Council, which is going to be people covering all aspects. And, this is a really broad net. I think we got caught up in this because we had that settlement sitting out there. And this is probably why they said all bets are off. Now we're looking at things again, which really is like really super uncool. Like what the spokesperson from NAR said, we had a deal. They reneged on their deal so they could go and see what else they perceive of us doing bad, which that kind of stinks. I mean, in a business where we do transactions and deals, I hate using that term because they're transactions, but we put together deals all the time. And, to have somebody say, we're done with it, after we have all of the nationwide MLSs trying to figure out how to comply. We're having to look at different lock boxes. We're having to do all of these things in anticipation of this, and then boom, it stops. So let's see if I got any comments. Okay. And you know what? I figured out how to get the comments. Now I got my phone into this. Let's see. So let's see. Mike White says, how is who pays a commission different than sales of a car, boat, RV, etc.? Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement on that. I mean, and honestly, who walks onto a car dealership and says, hey, car salesman, I know you're going to get paid if I buy this car. So tell me how much you get paid, and let me tell you if I think you are worth it or not before you even do the sale. I'm going to make a snap judgment on what your value is based on what my perception of fair is, not knowing what your costs are, what, how much you get off of the sales of the car, what your overhead is. Now, granted, we're each individual little business people. Even if you work for a big broker, you as an agent are a small business. Each one of us is a small business. I don't think you can get much smaller than one person's small business. And for us to have to fight to get paid in an era of time when everybody's devaluing us in the first place is bad. But now to have, the government say, you need to know how much this person's making. And believe me, if you knew my politics, this is not going with what I normally say. But I'm a little irritated by the fact that we even, we're being devalued even more. Name another, put in the chat, name another industry that has to disclose what they're being paid without getting the opportunity to hand a P&L of what your business expenses are. So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox and let's see if we have any other statements here. The transaction pays a commission. Without a buyer or seller, there's no transaction to pay. That's true. And everybody's worried about, what side of the net sheet is the debit for our expenses going to come from. And really, it's really not that big of a deal. If we explain it as an industry, we don't explain how this works very well. And if there's anything, to take away from this, maybe all of us, especially people that are in a position to set policy for their company, is explain this. Maybe we have a new disclosure, maybe something comes of it, just so we can explain to clients there is no free lunch. No agent is working for free. Somebody's going to be paying for it, and this is how it's done. Maybe if we did that, we don't have to have this how much you're getting paid business being published to the world so people can further devalue us. Let's see. Okay, Mike says, since attorneys are arguing this, perhaps they should disclose their fees up front on both sides. Touche. I agree. And if anybody wants to come up, just, say, I want to come up here, and I'll send you the link. There might be a temporary lag here. But anyhow, back to the Biden order. Let's see. So they're going to have this council, and they're going to get together every 6 months, and that'll be interesting to see. Now, there's something here. I'm having to scroll through. I read fast, but I don't read that fast. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so we are in item, let's see, further agency responsibilities. So it seems to be that we fall under the Federal Trade Commission because they're having guidance here that says to address persistent and recurrent practices that inhibit competition, the chair of the FTC and the chair's discretion is also encouraged to consider working with the rest of the commission to exercise statutory rulemaking as appropriate and consistent with applicable law in areas such as unfair tying practices or exclusionary practices in the brokerage or listing of real estate. What does that mean? I understand the first part, but what's the exclusionary or tying practices in the listing of real estate? Anybody got any ideas? Pop it on in here because I'd love to know what they're trying to get out. Lori and I were talking about this a little bit and saying not quite sure. Do they mean like people roping a seller in for a year? Or what sort of exclusionary practices in the listing of real estate are they really talking about? That's about as clear as mud. So we don't really know what it is, in my ever so humble opinion. Again, this is one woman's opinion piece right here. I don't know what they're really talking about. Let's see. Okay. And so then they go into all of the different, the Secretary of Agriculture is going to be looking at farming things. Everybody's going to be looking at everything. So I'm going to stop the screen share, but if anybody would like this link, I will put it into the chat afterwards. And, I would love anybody want to come up here? Anybody? Let me know. But let's go back into the comments here. Let's see. Okay, so we have from Angelica, could CAR allow the seller to opt out of disclosure of commissions, similar to opting out of posting photos? A small commission is a sign of a seller not easy to work with, negotiating repairs, etc. A small commission offer has a lot of a lot of reasons, I think. One of them can be a seller's reluctance to pay. Two can be somebody saying that they'll work for a minimum amount of commission. Three, maybe the agent goes in and says that the market's super hot. You don't need to really pay anything. I mean, I've seen $1 commissions posted. And it's like, okay, well, you know what? If that works for my client, I can still show them the house. And if they want to write an offer, I can, before I present the offer, I can ask for a modification of commissions. And as long as it's done before the offer, everything is negotiable. That's the thing that kills me is people think like we're sitting out here saying, you got to pay this, you've got to pay that. There's no room in this. There's all the room in the world. And, if my client wants the house and some ding dong agents out there offering $1, trying to be cute or something like that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a modification of terms and I'm going to ask for a percentage that I feel is fair to represent my services, or maybe a flat fee. We can do flat fees too. And then if they don't like it, they don't have to accept it. Then I can tell my clients they can pay me outside to represent them, which this leads me to another point of something I didn't even realize that was out there on the buyer brokerage agreement front. But, everything is negotiable. Everything. We just need to show our clients every property that suits their needs, whether it's a reasonable amount being offered or not. And, people are like, well, people don't really sort the MLS. Man, back in the day, a long time ago, there was a person I worked with at a brokerage long, long ago that would go in and he's like, I'm only sorting. Ooh, did I say he? I'm sorry. They said, I'm only sorting out, the 3% commissions because I'm not working for a penny less than that. That's all my clients are going to see. And believe me, that was decades ago and it sticks with me to this day. There's certain experiences that you have in this business where it just sticks. And that one just stuck. And I looked at that gentleman and I'm like, dude, heck, if I was one of your clients, I wouldn't be working with you. There's no way I'd be working with you because that kind of situation gets to be a little bizarre. So we need to keep our clients' needs forefront. That's the number one thing. If the house works for your client, you show your client wants to see a house, you show them the house. As Lori and I had mentioned in previous conversations, we are the messengers. We do what we need to do. So, you know, that's what's going on here. In my ever so humble opinion, if we take care of our clients, we're okay. And that's number one. That's what we should be doing. Let's see. Raj says, I think they were talking about MLS and how only realtors have access. That's one of the few things that it's going to be interesting to see what the MLSs do at this point. I haven't heard much on that front. You know, they've been working hard. I feel really bad. I feel really bad for the nationwide MLSs that are trying to figure out how to comply with this. And that probably is sucking up a lot of their times. Let's see. Janet says, explaining fees should be done at the onset of the client relationship, not advertised as part of the listing. Yes, Lisa, done in practice, commissions are often renegotiated during the transaction. And that's really before you submit an offer. Not that, you know, this is not a great practice to get into, because you should be, you know, I mean, anyhow, we're not going to get into that anymore. But, you know, people don't explain our business to their clients, and people from the outside look at it. And because we don't explain it properly, I think that's why we're held up to this scrutiny a little bit more. On the buyer representation agreement, this is something interesting because Janet Dorsey and I were in a great conversation on Clubhouse with some agents from the other side of the continent. And we were talking about buyer brokerage agreements. And so, you know, I go into zip forms real quick so I can talk intelligently about it. And I pull it up and I'm like, there's 3. I didn't realize there was 3. And there's an exclusive buyer broker agreement, which is the one that I think most of us think of. And there was 2 other ones. One was like an open contract that, you know, it's just like, if if I show you certain houses, you will pay me, but it's not any property. You know, if you walk into a new home office, you know, you don't have any responsibility to be paying the buyer's agent that you signed that agreement with. It only applies to certain things, kind of like, you know, an open listing. And then they had one that had no offer of compensation in it. It was just kind of like, and I can't believe I didn't know this form existed. It's like almost like a buyer disclosure. It's saying what your duties are as a buyer's agent, not roping them into a time period, not roping them into a commission that they have to pay you. But boy, what a great document that is. It really, really, really should be used. And is what we called it was the gateway drug to buyer broker representation contracts, because it spells out what your duties are, you know, beyond the agency disclosure, but what your duties are and what you agree to do to help your buyers without making them feel like, oh my God, I'm roped into this ridiculous contract and now I can't get out of it. Or, oh my God, I don't want to have to, you know, be tied to pay you something, you know, because we all know that this is part of the reason why we don't use it, because we're afraid the buyers are going to say, you know, so I highly recommend everybody checking that out. It's a really cool form, and it's something I'm going to start using because, number one, it shows that I'm a professional. It outlines what it is that I'm doing, how I'm doing it, all kinds of cool stuff. And 2, it should make a buyer feel more comfortable instead of feeling like I'm being tied to me, you know, and we're now hip to hip locked, whether you like me or not, whether you think I'm not working hard enough for you, our personalities don't mesh, I don't get you, you know, there's a lot of reason why buyers change their mind about who they work with. And, you know, I think it's a great form though. I think it's really a fantastic form. And I was so happy to have that conversation where I was made aware of it. Now, Pam, I'm going back to comments. Isn't that an antitrust violation? And explain that, because I don't remember what was said. Let's see. Bella says buyer's agents are not well represented. Buyer broker agreements are difficult to enforce compared to listing agreements. Why are sellers' commissions not disclosed up front like the new buyer disclosure? This confuses consumers. Good point. Good point. Before we started this little broadcast today, Lori and I were texting, and Lori's not here because she's not feeling well and her voice was questionable all weekend, and I am not going to make her get on here and make her lose her voice again. You know, friends don't do that to friends. So, but that was one of the things that we discussed was, if you have to disclose what the buyer's agent's making, then why aren't we disclosing what the listing agent's making? You know, if we want full transparency, well, then let's get transparent. I think it should either be all or nothing. You know, so it begs a good conversation, which, you know, hopefully we will be having more of this. Now, let's see. Mike White says no more buyer broker agreement, now called buyer representation agreement. Absolutely right. Janet says big distinction between each buyer rep agreement. So important to list your buyer just like you're listing your seller. Oh, Pam, what's the form number? I don't know. I'll see. Janet, Lori, one of you two dig it up and throw it into the chat. That would be a wonderful thing. And let's see, the guy who excluded listings that are all, yeah. I mean, we're talking decades ago, and unfortunately that agent has passed away. But it was sad. It was literally sad to watch that happen. And now it could be, who knows what people are looking for? Who knows what people are looking for? We have, you know, like any industry, we have good actors, we have bad actors. But to witness somebody bragging about being a bad actor was disturbing to me. You know, there's just certain things that stick with you. And that made me, it made me swear to myself that I would never, ever do that to any of my buyers. And that was the takeaway of that statement. If anybody was concerned about, you know, antitrust, it was just basically getting across the statement of something that happened at least 25 years ago that I was witness to. And, you know, I mean, there's certain things that, you know, that really change your opinion about things. You know, somebody I was working with years and years ago made a statement about who should be moving into neighborhoods and who shouldn't. And that, believe me, that sticks with me like it happened yesterday. Those two events probably had more greater impact on me in my career than anything, was witnessing people doing something that was so blatantly wrong. And the person doing the search, I didn't say anything to him. I didn't know. I was just in shock. And it made me realize that is wrong. When the person said, we don't want those people in this neighborhood, that one pissed me off. And that one, I said something, and I was a fresh new licensee. And that was, this is wrong. Who are you to be making a distinction like that? And you know, I won't get into it, but you know, I'm sure everybody here has had something in their career where they've witnessed something that has changed the way you do your business for the better. And that was the reason why I brought that up. And didn't even dawn on me. I shouldn't have said the number. I shouldn't have said that it was a male, and I probably shouldn't have said the person passed away, but you know, it just stuck with me to witness it. And people thinking nothing's wrong with it. People thinking nothing was wrong with it. I don't want those people in this neighborhood. I don't know, conscience, you know, good customer service practice on the sorting, taking yourself out of the equation. You know, hopefully more people will start doing that. If anything comes from this, maybe we'll all start being a little bit more aware. And Janet put in the chat the BRE, the BRNE, and the BRNN. I highly, highly recommend everybody take a look at those 3 forms. And the one with no compensation, if Janet could kindly put which one it is in the chat. I think everybody should really take a look at that because it's really a magnificent form. And I can't really say that too often about too many things, but that one I think is truly a great form. Thank you, Janet, the BRNN. Boy, what would I do this morning without friends? Because you guys are helping me out here. And let's see, anybody else have any comments in here? Let's see. And Pam, thank you for the reminder. And yeah, I mean, this is something that we're going to be keeping an eye on. We also have hopefully a Clubhouse talk. If you guys aren't on Clubhouse, it works now both on Android and on Apple products. And if you'd like to join the conversation, I'll be posting something. We have 2 rooms. We're going to have 2 rooms. Don't know when the time is for the second one. We're going to have to figure that out. But we're going to have an offshoot room of our Talk Nerdy to Me Real Estate Economics Mastermind, which we have every Tuesday at 3:30. And we're fortunate that we have Logan Motoshami joining as a recurring guest to talk about what's new in the economic world. What's happening out there, giving clarities to, you know, the forbearance situation, this non-existent fear of or non-existent foreclosure tsunami and the fear thereof of something that's probably not going to happen. You know, good economic information, but we want to have a Talk Nerdy to Me compliance mastermind for all of us complete compliance and operations nerds to get together and have a platform to talk. And we've been learning some fascinating things from agents from across the country that are like, let's do more of these rooms. So if you'd like to join us and want more information, you can just put it in the comments there on Facebook, and you know I'm going to post it in the group. So let's see, do we have anything else here in the chat? Or else we're probably going to call this an early day. Let's see. Yes, Pam says the Code of Ethics has the Golden Rule statement written in 1913. And yeah, you know, I mean, it really goes, you know, as a realtor, that's what we're supposed to be doing, the Golden Rule. And if you don't know what that is, I highly suggest that you go and, you know, if you haven't done your ethics training, which will lead me into my next part, you probably really should. And that will, sorry, just read Jeff's comment. And that will kind of get you clarified that. And yes, it is Talk Nerdy to Me. I'm glad Jeff and Mike are getting that worked out in the chat there. And, you know, anybody who wants to chat, I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about Clubhouse is it's, you know, you're not having that, supposedly it's not recorded depending on who you talk to. You know, if somebody really wants to listen in, go for it. But Olivia, I will send you reminders for the Clubhouse chats because they're fun. It's an open conversation. You know, it's kind of a weird setup where we have like an audience of people that don't know anybody versus people that kind of know the speakers versus the speakers. And anybody can be a speaker. And if you have a fear of Clubhouse, come on in and just raise your hand and we'll bring you up on stage. And it's funny because every time you go on stage, first time on Clubhouse, you're always out of breath. You can always tell somebody's first time because they're always out of breath. But it's, you know, it's a fun platform just to have conversations. So watch for those this week. Not sure when the Talk Nerdy to Me Compliance Edition is going to go. I think we're going to call it the DOJ/NAR Settlement Part 2, because that was Part 1 last week. We just didn't know it was Part 1, but now we got a little bit more information. So I think it's going to be a really good conversation. But back to the Code of Ethics. While back, Lori and I issued the C2EX challenge, and we haven't talked about it much, probably because, well, I started and I hadn't finished. I have a whole lot of projects I started and I haven't finished because I'm like, I'm going to use this pandemic, learn myself some stuff, get a designation here and get a designation there, all that good stuff. And one of them is the C2EX. And thank God for NAR little email reminders, because they're like, are you going to continue on with your C2EX training? And I'm like, oh, dang, I guess I better do that, because, you know, we're all due for our ethics training, and getting the C2EX, if you haven't gotten it already, that will count for your ethics training. So just want to remind everybody, it's not too hard. It's not painful. You know, you get a lot of opportunities to test your way out of different things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Things I thought I really kind of could answer right. No, maybe I didn't. But I finished. So if I can do it, you can do it. So I highly, highly, highly recommend getting on there. And if you're going to do the code of ethics training that you have to do anyhow, why don't you just go ahead and get your C2EX? And then you can add that to your resume, and you can use a cute little design on your Facebook profile photo, and print out a really cool certificate and post it all over the place, because you know that's what I did, because, well, I'm just that way. But anyhow, just a reminder on that. And if you do, post it in the group. We want to see. And we'll probably talk about this a little bit more often, because of the fact that the December 31st deadline is coming up for being sure that you're in compliance with ethics training and all that good stuff. So if anybody has anything else they want to chat about, put it in the chat. Yes, well, we're all nerds, aren't we, Olivia? Otherwise, why would we be here? Embrace your nerdery. I love that word. Nerdery can't possibly be used enough. But I'll go ahead and set up the clubhouse times. Maybe if Janet and Lori could let me know if they have any availability this week. And I'm going to check with our friends in Pennsylvania and see if they have a time that works for them, because they were the ones like, let's talk about this next week. So we would love to have that conversation. And the great thing about it is you can hear from more people. But on that note, it's 9:38, you know, oh, let's see, what format does Clubhouse use? Clubhouse is basically an app that you have to be invited to. And if you'd like an invite, Francis, I can send you one. I think I've got you in my phone, but if not, I'm going to do something really crazy. I'm going to hand out my cell phone number, but hey, I do it all over the internet anyhow. So why should this be any different? My cell phone number, text me saying I want to join Clubhouse. Cell phone number is 949-233-8603. I'll go ahead and put that in the comments, because I need to put you in the in my address book, and then I can send you an invite. And you know, Jeff Campbell, I bet I could even do that for you. So nerdery, come on, Mike, nerdery, just general nerdery. It's what we're doing right here. That's nerdery. So anyhow, so Francis, send me a text. I'll get that over to you, and you know, join us later in the week, and we'll try to keep it to an hour, because I can't really do much longer than that. I do have work to do, but you're welcome. You're welcome, Francis. And I look forward to seeing everybody. Hopefully Lori's going to have a voice by then, and she can join us too. But we'll go ahead and shut this down for the day, because I think my work here is done. I'm just sitting here talking to myself, which some people might think is a little strange, but you know what? It's been fun, even if it's a one-sided conversation. I love conversing with you guys in the comments, and we will go ahead and shut this down. It'll be a short one today, so everybody can get back to work. But yes, Janet, if you are there, I promise you, and I'm talking to my phone because that's where the comments are. I promise it will be 1 hour, because I don't have time for more. So thank you guys for all of your thanks, and we will see you later in the week, and have a wonderful day, and go out and sell a house. Take care. Bye-bye.